Sign it, Evelyn. We're done.
You don't have many options left. That's what you think. The ownership has always belonged to Evelyn Harper.
That can't be possible.
You never bothered to know who I was.
He didn't wait a day, not even an hour. Minutes after she gave birth to their twins, still shaking, still stitched, still trying to hold two fragile lives against her chest. Her husband walked into the hospital room with another woman at his side. No smile, no touch, no question about the babies. Just a thick envelope placed coldly beside her arm. "You're not my problem anymore." He said it like a business decision. Clean, final. What he didn't know was that just hours earlier, behind a quiet hospital door, his dependent wife had signed something that would change everything. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 weeks earlier, before the hospital, before the betrayal, everything still looked normal. Evelyn Harper stood in her own kitchen, one hand resting on her stomach, the other gripping the edge of the counter like she needed something solid to hold onto. 8 months pregnant, heavy, tired, quiet. Across from her, Daniel Harper didn't look up from his phone. "Can you move a little?" he said, irritation slipping into his voice. "You're blocking the light." Evelyn blinked, confused for a second, then shifted to the side without a word. It wasn't the sentence. It was how easily it came out of him, like she wasn't a person, just something in the way. At the far end of the kitchen, Linda Harper watched the exchange with a thin smile. Perfect posture, perfect hair, everything about her controlled. "Pregnancy isn't an excuse to let yourself go?" Linda said casually, as if commenting on the weather. A woman should still take pride in how she presents herself. Evelyn's fingers tightened slightly against the counter. The twins shifted inside her, slow, uneasy. She didn't answer. She had learned not to. Silence didn't fix things, but it kept them from getting worse. Daniel finally looked up just long enough to glance at her. "You know, people at work keep asking why you never come to events anymore," he said. "It's getting awkward." "I'm 8 months pregnant," Evelyn replied softly. So he shot back. "Other women manage." Linda nodded, approving. "Exactly." Evelyn felt something small inside her chest sink a little deeper. Not new pain, just familiar. She turned toward the sink, pretending to rinse a glass that was already clean. The water ran longer than it needed to. Behind her, Daniel's phone buzzed. He picked it up immediately, his tone shifting lighter now. "Yeah, I'll be there," he said. "No, don't worry about it. I'll handle it." A pause. Then a quieter voice. "Yeah, she won't be an issue." Evelyn didn't turn around. She didn't ask who he was talking to. She already knew enough. The house had changed over the past year. Subtle at first, then clearer. Late nights, short answers, less eye contact, and recently a new name appearing more often than it should. Natalie. Evelyn dried her hands slowly and moved toward the hallway. Her back ached, her feet hurt. Every step felt heavier than the last. No one noticed. Upstairs, in a small office Daniel barely ever used. Evelyn closed the door behind her and leaned against it for a second. This room was the only place in the house that still felt like hers. Simple desk, plain chair, no decoration. On the desk sat a laptop Daniel had never asked about. She walked over and opened it. The screen lit up instantly. Clean interface, secure login, files neatly organized. Nothing flashy, nothing obvious. Just work. Real work. Evelyn sat down slowly, one hand still resting on her stomach. The twins shifted again and she exhaled, steadying herself. A notification blinked in the corner of the screen. An encrypted email. She stared at it for a moment without opening it. Downstairs, she could hear Linda's voice again. Low, disapproving. Always talking about standards and expectations. Daniel laughed at something. Not with her. Never with her anymore. Evelyn clicked open another window instead. Lines of code filled the screen. Clean, precise, familiar. This was the part of her life no one in that house understood. No one had ever asked. Not really. They preferred the simpler story, that she had been nothing before Daniel, that he had given her a life, that she should be grateful. Evelyn's eyes moved across the screen, checking, adjusting, refining. Quiet work, invisible work, the kind that didn't need applause, the kind that didn't ask for permission. Her phone vibrated softly beside the laptop. She glanced at it. Unknown number. She hesitated, then let it ring out. A second later, another notification appeared, this time from the same secure email account. Different subject line. Short, direct. Final review scheduled. Evelyn stared at those 3 words. Something in her expression shifted. Not excitement, not fear. Something quieter, more certain. Downstairs, Daniel's voice carried faintly through the floor. Impatient, distant, already somewhere else. Evelyn closed the laptop halfway, her fingers resting lightly on the edge. For a moment, she just sat there, listening, feeling the weight of everything she hadn't said, everything she hadn't shown, everything they assumed about her. Then she reached forward again, and this time she opened the email. Evelyn didn't rush. She read the email once, then again. Slowly this time letting every word settle instead of rushing past it. Final review scheduled, Vidian Executive Board, approval pending. There was a time when something like this would have made her heart race, when she would have called someone, celebrated, let it mean something out loud. Now she just sat there, quiet, one hand resting over her stomach as the twins shifted beneath her palm. The room felt still, safe, separate from everything downstairs. For a moment she allowed herself to breathe. Then she reached for her phone and returned the missed call. It rang once. Evelyn. A calm voice answered immediately. I was hoping you'd call back. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. Hi, Claire. Claire Whitman didn't waste time with small talk. She never had. Senior partner, sharp, efficient. The kind of lawyer who didn't call unless something mattered. They moved faster than expected, Claire said. The board wants the final presentation locked in before the end of the week. They're serious. Evelyn nodded, even though Claire couldn't see her. I saw the email. Good. Then you know what this means. Yes. She did. It meant everything she had built in silence was about to be seen, evaluated, claimed if she let it be, and for the first time in years it would be hers in the open. I'll review everything tonight, Evelyn said. A pause on the other end. Then Claire's voice softened just slightly. Are you okay? Evelyn glanced at the door. Downstairs, a faint laugh drifted up again. Daniel. Light. Easy. Not meant for her. I'm fine, she said. Claire didn't push. Just remember what we discussed. Your intellectual property is protected. The prenup holds. No one touches this unless you allow it. Evelyn's grip tightened slightly around the phone. No one. Not even her husband. I know, she said quietly. Good. I'll have my team ready once the board confirms. And Evelyn. She waited. Don't undersell yourself just because you've been doing that at home. The line went quiet after that. Evelyn didn't respond right away. She ended the call, set the phone down, and stared at the half-open laptop screen. Undersell yourself? A small, almost invisible smile flickered across her face. Not from pride. Something closer to recognition. She had been doing that. Not just at home. In every room that mattered to Daniel. Downstairs, a chair scraped loudly. Footsteps followed. Then the sound of heels. Evelyn didn't move. But her body stilled. A second later, the front door opened. Daniel, a woman's voice called out, soft, confident, familiar. Evelyn's stomach tightened, not from the pregnancy this time. Natalie. She hadn't been invited. At least not openly. Evelyn stood slowly closing the laptop, just enough to dim the screen. She moved toward the door, not rushing just enough to hear without being seen. I thought you said you'd be home later, Natalie said, her voice closer now. Meeting got moved, Daniel replied. It's fine. There was a pause, then a low laugh, comfortable, intimate. Evelyn felt something shift inside her chest. Not breaking, not yet, just rearranging. You sure she's okay with me being here? Natalie asked, though her tone didn't sound like she cared about the answer. She won't say anything, Daniel said. Flat, certain. Evelyn closed her eyes for a second. He wasn't guessing. He knew. She never does. Another silence. Softer this time. Closer. Evelyn stepped back from the door before she heard anything else. She didn't need to. She had heard enough. When she turned back to the desk, the laptop screen had gone dark. For a moment, her reflection stared back at her. Tired, pale, pregnant, easy to dismiss, easy to underestimate. She walked back to the chair and sat down again slower this time. Her hand rested over her stomach, grounding herself in something real. The twins shifted again, almost like a reminder. She wasn't alone. Downstairs, Natalie's voice carried faintly again, talking about work, about strategy, about positioning. Evelyn listened just enough to understand. Natalie knew the language, not the depth of it, but enough to recognize opportunity. That made something inside Evelyn settle into place. This wasn't just carelessness anymore. It wasn't just a failing marriage. It was people moving pieces on a board thinking she wasn't one of them. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Claire. A forwarded email. Subject line, draft proposal, Vidian logistics optimization. Evelyn frowned slightly and opened it. Her eyes moved quickly now. Sharper, focused. The language was familiar. Too familiar. Not copied. Not exactly. But close enough. A structure she had built. A logic she had written. Someone was trying to replicate it. Or worse, present something like it. Her jaw tightened just a fraction. Another notification followed immediately. Claire again. Short message this time. have you shared anything with anyone in your household? Evelyn didn't answer right away. Downstairs, Daniel laughed again, Natalie's voice layered over his. Easy, confident, unaware. Evelyn looked back at the email, then at the closed laptop, then at her reflection in the dark screen. No, she typed slowly. A second later, Claire replied, Good, then we may have a problem. Evelyn's eyes didn't move. Outside the window, the late afternoon light shifted, casting long shadows across the room. Downstairs, her husband entertained another woman in the house they shared, and somewhere between those two worlds, something had already started to unravel. Evelyn reached for the laptop again. This time she didn't hesitate. Evelyn didn't go downstairs that night. She stayed in the office long after the house grew quiet, long after Natalie's heels stopped echoing against the hardwood floors, long after Daniel's voice faded into the kind of silence that used to mean peace. Now it just felt empty. The email Claire sent stayed open on her screen. The draft proposal, the language, the structure. It wasn't identical, but it was close enough to make her stomach tighten. Close enough to feel like someone had been standing behind her shoulder watching. Evelyn leaned back slowly in the chair, one hand pressed against her stomach, as the twins shifted again. She breathed through it, steady, controlled. There were only a few ways something like this could happen. Carelessness, access, or trust placed in the wrong place. Her eyes moved towards the door. Downstairs, Daniel had said it so easily. She won't say anything. He wasn't wrong. She hadn't. Not when his mother spoke to her like she didn't belong. Not when he stopped asking about her day. Not when Natalie started showing up more often than anyone needed to. Evelyn closed the laptop gently this time. Not halfway. Fully. Something inside her had changed. Not loudly, but completely. The next morning, the house felt normal again. Too normal. Daniel sat at the kitchen island, dressed for work, scrolling through his phone, coffee untouched in front of him. Linda stood near the stove, already dressed like she had somewhere important to be, even though she didn't. Evelyn walked in slowly, one hand supporting her back. Neither of them greeted her. Morning, she said anyway. Daniel gave a short nod without looking up. Linda glanced at her briefly. You should be resting more, she said. You look exhausted. There was no concern in her voice, just judgment. Evelyn moved toward the fridge, careful with each step. I slept fine, she replied. You don't look like it, Linda said. Evelyn didn't respond. She reached for a bottle of water, unscrewing the cap slowly. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. Across the counter, Daniel finally looked up. I'll be late tonight, he said. Big meeting. Evelyn nodded. Okay. A pause. Then Linda spoke again. Natalie mentioned you missed the last company dinner, she said. That doesn't look good, Evelyn. Evelyn turned slightly. I wasn't invited. Linda smiled faintly. You don't need an invitation to support your husband. Evelyn met her gaze for a second, then looked away. There was no point correcting her. Daniel leaned back in his chair, watching the exchange like it had nothing to do with him. She's not exactly helpful in those environments, he said. Casual, dismissive. Evelyn felt it land. Not sharp, not sudden, just heavy. Like something that had been said too many times in different ways. Right, Linda agreed. Some people just aren't built for that world. Silence followed. Evelyn took a sip of water, her hand resting lightly on her stomach again. The twins were quiet this morning. For once. She turned toward the sink, rinsing the glass slowly. Behind her, Daniel stood grabbing his keys. Oh, and Mom might stop by later, he said. There's some paperwork we need to go over. Evelyn frowned slightly. What paperwork? Nothing you need to worry about, he replied quickly. Just financial stuff, financial stuff. The words lingered longer than they should have. Evelyn turned around slowly. "I thought we handled everything together," she said. Daniel shrugged. "We did. This is just updates." Linda stepped in before Evelyn could say anything else. "It's better this way," she said. "Less confusion." Evelyn held her gaze. For a second, something almost surfaced. A question. A challenge. Then she let it go. "Okay," she said quietly. Daniel didn't notice the way her voice changed. He was already heading toward the door. "I'll call you later," he added. He didn't. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Linda moved around the kitchen like she owned it, adjusting things that didn't need adjusting. "You should think about what you're bringing to this marriage," she said without looking at Evelyn. "Daniel works hard. He needs a partner, not a burden." The words settled into the room like they belonged there. Evelyn didn't respond. She dried her hands, folded the towel neatly, and set it down. Her movements were slow, careful, intentional. Not the movements of someone falling apart. The movements of someone deciding something. Upstairs, back in the office, Evelyn opened her laptop again. This time she didn't hesitate. She pulled up the proposal Claire had sent. Then she opened her own files, line by line, structure by structure. She compared them. There it was. Not just similarity. Familiar thinking. Someone hadn't just guessed. They had understood enough to imitate. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Her phone buzzed. Claire again. "Board confirmed. Final review tomorrow." Evelyn read the message once, then again. "Tomorrow." Downstairs, Linda's voice carried faintly through the house, talking on the phone now. Mentioning Daniel. Mentioning future planning. Evelyn looked back at the screen, at her work, at the pieces someone was already trying to take. And for the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt clear. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, opening a secure folder Daniel had never seen. Inside were files, backups, time-stamped drafts, legal notes, everything documented, everything protected. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Claire. Short, direct. "Also, someone from your husband's company reached out to Vivian this morning. Different name. Similar pitch." Evelyn's hand stopped. Just for a second. Then she picked up the phone and typed back. "Who?" The reply came almost instantly. Company name N. Reed Consulting. Evelyn stared at the screen. Downstairs, Linda laughed at something on her call. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street. Inside the quiet room, everything finally connected. Evelyn didn't react right away. She just sat there, breathing, thinking, understanding. Then she reached for her laptop again. Because this wasn't just a marriage falling apart anymore. And whoever thought she had nothing to lose had just made their first real mistake. Evelyn didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the pregnancy, not because of the discomfort that had become part of her routine, but because her mind wouldn't slow down. Every piece was starting to align. The draft proposal, the timing, the company name. Natalie. It wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. By early morning, the house was still dark when Evelyn stood in the kitchen, one hand pressed against her lower back, waiting for the kettle to boil. She moved slower now, more careful. The weight of the twins made every step feel measured, but her mind stayed sharp, focused. Her phone rested on the counter beside her. Claire's last message still visible. "Be careful what you say, and who you say it around." Evelyn stared at those words for a long second. Then she locked the screen. The front door opened a few minutes later. Daniel walked in, loosening his tie, already talking on his phone. "Yeah, I saw it," he said. "No, not finalized yet, but we're close." He stopped when he noticed her in the kitchen. For a second, he looked surprised, like he didn't expect her to be awake. Then his expression shifted back to neutral. "I'll call you later," he said quickly into the phone, then hung up. Evelyn didn't ask who it was. She didn't need to. "You're up early," he said, grabbing a glass from the cabinet. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. He nodded, distracted, already pouring himself water. There was a pause. Then he added, "Big week coming up." Evelyn glanced at him. Yeah, he said, a faint hint of pride slipping into his voice. "We're working on something that could change everything for the company." Her hand stilled on the counter. "Sounds important, it is," he said. "If this lands, it puts us ahead of everyone. Everyone." Evelyn felt something cold settle under her skin. She nodded once. "That's good." Daniel studied her for a moment, like he was expecting more of a reaction. Excitement, curiosity, admiration. When none came, he looked away. "You wouldn't really get the details anyway," he added casually. "It's pretty technical." Evelyn didn't respond right away. The kettle clicked off behind her. Steam curled into the air. She reached for it, slowly pouring water into a mug. "I might," she said quietly. Daniel let out a short laugh. Not cruel, just dismissive. Right, that was it. One word. But it landed heavier than anything else he had said. Evelyn carried her mug to the table and sat down, her movements careful, deliberate. Daniel leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone again. "Mom's coming by later," he said. "We need to finalize some things." Evelyn looked up. "What things?" "Just financial restructuring," he replied. "It's easier if we keep things streamlined right now." Streamlined. Evelyn's fingers tightened slightly around the mug. "And that doesn't involve me?" she asked. Daniel hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "It's not necessary, not necessary." Evelyn lowered her gaze to the table. The words echoed longer than they should have. There had been a time when she would have argued, pressed, asked for clarity. Now she just absorbed it. Across the room, Daniel's phone buzzed again. He picked it up instantly. His expression changed. Subtle, but she noticed. "Hey," he said softer now. A pause, then a small smile. "I know, I'll handle it." "Natalie." Evelyn didn't need to hear the name. She could hear it in the way his voice shifted, in the way his shoulders relaxed, in the way he turned slightly away from her. "She's already asking questions." He continued, his voice lower now. "No, she won't connect anything." "Don't worry." Evelyn's breath slowed, controlled. "Even." She never does. The words hit harder this time, not because they were new, but because now she understood exactly what they meant. Daniel ended the call and slipped his phone into his pocket. When he turned back, Evelyn was still sitting at the table, quiet, her expression unreadable. "You should get some rest," he said. "You look tired." Evelyn nodded once. "I will." He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. "Don't wait up," he added. The door closed behind him. The house went still again. Evelyn didn't move for a long time. She just sat there, her hands wrapped around the mug, her eyes fixed on nothing. Then slowly she stood. Back upstairs in the office, she opened her laptop and pulled up the draft again. This time she wasn't just comparing. She was analyzing every section, every decision point, every line that mirrored her own thinking. It was clear now. They weren't just inspired by her work. They were building on it, without understanding where it came from, without understanding what it could actually do. Her phone buzzed. Claire again. "Board confirmed your slot. Today?" They moved it up. Evelyn read the message twice. Today. Her eyes shifted to the window. Morning light was already filling the room. Downstairs, Linda's voice had returned, sharp and familiar, talking to someone about timelines and expectations. Evelyn closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. Clear, steady. She picked up her phone and typed. "I'll be ready." A second later, Claire replied, "Good. One more thing." Evelyn waited. Vidian flagged the external pitch. They want to know if you're aware someone is presenting a similar model under a different name. Evelyn stared at the screen, her reflection faintly visible over the text. Do you want us to intervene? Claire added. Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Downstairs, Linda's voice rose, slightly impatient about something. Outside, the world moved like nothing was about to change. Evelyn looked back at her files, at the work she had built quietly, protected carefully, ignored completely. Then she typed. Not yet. A pause. Then another message. Let them present. Claire's reply came slower this time. You're sure Evelyn's fingers hovered over the screen, then moved? Yes. She set the phone down and leaned back in her chair, one hand resting gently over her stomach. The twins shifted again. Alive, real, hers. Downstairs, the house carried on like it always had. Above it, in a quiet room, no one paid attention to Evelyn Harper made a decision. And somewhere across the city, in a boardroom she hadn't stepped into yet, people were about to evaluate a system they thought they understood. They didn't. Not even close. The pain came in waves. Not sharp at first, just a tightening. A slow pull across Evelyn's lower abdomen that made her pause mid-step as she reached for the railing. She stood there for a second, breathing through it, steady, controlled. It wasn't time yet. It couldn't be. She had one more day, one more meeting, one more thing she needed to finish before everything changed. Downstairs, Linda's voice carried through the house, still talking about schedules, still planning things that didn't include Evelyn. Evelyn didn't call out. She didn't say anything. She just waited for the pain to pass. When it did, she moved again. Careful. Quiet. Back to the office. The laptop screen glowed in the dim room, her files still open, her work still waiting. Outside, the sky had shifted. Late afternoon now. Time had moved forward whether she was ready or not. Her phone buzzed. Claire. Board ready in 1 hour. Can you join remotely? Evelyn stared at the message, her hand resting over her stomach. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. She closed her eyes. Breathed. Counted. Waited. When it passed, she typed back. Yes. Downstairs, the front door opened again. Footsteps. 2 sets this time. Evelyn didn't need to look. Natalie's voice followed almost immediately, light. Confident, completely at ease in a space that wasn't hers. I told you if we push this version, they won't even question it, she said. Daniel laughed under his breath. That's the plan. Evelyn stayed where she was. Still. Listening. They don't need to know where it came from, Natalie added. A pause. Then Daniel's voice, lower now. They won't. The words settled into Evelyn's chest harder than the contraction had. Not just betrayal. Not just carelessness. This was intention. She turned slowly back to the desk, lowering herself into the chair. Her breathing was steady again. Controlled. But something deeper had shifted. Her phone buzzed once more. Claire. Link sent. Join when ready. Evelyn opened the laptop fully this time. The secure connection window appeared. Clean, professional, quiet. So different from the chaos downstairs. Another contraction hit. She leaned forward slightly, gripping the edge of the desk, her knuckles whitening. This one didn't pass as quickly. Her breath caught. For a second, she thought about calling out, about asking for help, about telling Daniel. Then she heard Natalie laugh again. Close. Too close. And Daniel's voice followed. Relaxed. Comfortable. Not hers anymore. Evelyn closed her eyes and let the thought go. When the pain eased, she straightened again. She clicked the link. The screen shifted. Faces appeared. 4, 5, 6. Executives. Board members. People who didn't know her personally, but knew the work in front of them. Evelyn Harper, one of them asked. Her voice came out steady. Yes. Thank you for joining on short notice, another said. We've reviewed the preliminary materials. We're interested in seeing the final model. Evelyn nodded. Her screen shared automatically. The algorithm, her work. Years of quiet effort reduced to something clean and visible. Another contraction built beneath the surface. She ignored it, focused, walked them through it, step by step. Clear, precise, controlled. As she spoke, she could hear faint sounds from downstairs, a door closing, footsteps moving. Daniel's voice fading again, unaware, still unaware. Can you explain the predictive scaling layer, someone asked? Evelyn's eyes didn't flicker. Yes, she explained. Not rushed, not defensive, just certain. Because this was the one place no one could take from her. Not without understanding it. And they didn't. Not even close. Halfway through the presentation, her phone vibrated again. She ignored it. Another contraction hit, harder. This time she couldn't stop the sharp inhale that escaped her. Are you all right? One of the board members asked. Evelyn forced a small nod. I'm fine. Please continue. She finished the explanation. Closed the model. The room went quiet for a second. Then one of them leaned forward. This is exceptional, he said. Another nodded. We'd like to move forward immediately. Evelyn's hand tightened on the desk. Understood, she said. We'll have legal send over the final licensing agreement within the hour, someone added. Once signed, we'll proceed with full integration. Licensing agreement, final, real. Evelyn nodded again. Thank you. The call ended shortly after. The screen went dark. Silence filled the room. Evelyn sat there for a moment staring at her reflection. Her breathing uneven now, the contractions closer together. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. Claire, agreement sent. This is the final one. Evelyn reached for the phone slowly. Her fingers trembled just slightly, not from fear, from pain. She opened the document, scanned it quickly. Every clause, every protection, everything she had built, and everything they were about to try and steal. Downstairs, the front door opened again. Voices moved toward the hallway. Closer. Evelyn didn't look away from the screen. She pressed her thumb to the signature field. Paused. One more contraction hit, stronger than all the others. Her body bent forward slightly, her breath catching in her throat. For a second, everything blurred. The pain, the voices, the weight of what she was about to do. Then it passed. Slowly. Evelyn straightened and signed. The confirmation screen appeared instantly. Deal executed. Her phone buzzed again. Claire, congratulations. It's done. Downstairs, footsteps moved towards the stairs. Daniel's voice. Evelyn, we need to talk. Evelyn didn't answer. She closed the laptop gently. Her hand rested over her stomach again. The twins shifted, this time different, urgent. Another contraction hit, and this one didn't fade. Evelyn looked toward the door. Alone, still alone, and finally realized it wasn't almost time anymore. It was now. Evelyn didn't scream. She didn't panic. The pain rose through her body, sharp and steady, now wrapping around her spine and pulling her forward as she gripped the edge of the desk. She breathed through it, counted, waited. Downstairs, Daniel's footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. Evelyn, he called again, louder this time. She didn't answer. Another contraction hit, stronger, longer. Evelyn pushed herself up slowly, one hand bracing against the desk, the other holding her stomach. This wasn't something she could ignore anymore. She reached for her phone, her fingers steady despite everything, and dialed. Claire picked up on the first ring. Evelyn. I need a hospital, Evelyn said quietly. Now. Claire didn't ask questions. Which one is closest to you? Evelyn gave her the name. Stay on the line, Claire said. I'm calling ahead. I'll have someone meet you there. Evelyn nodded, even though Claire couldn't see her. Thank you. She ended the call, and leaned against the desk for a second, steadying herself. Then she moved. Down the hallway, toward the stairs, each step slow, careful. By the time she reached the bottom, Daniel was already in the living room, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion when he saw her. "What's going on?" he asked. Evelyn didn't stop walking. "I'm going to the hospital." The words were simple, flat. Daniel blinked. Now another contraction hit before she could answer. She paused, her hand tightening against the wall, her breath catching for a second. Daniel stared at her. For a moment, something close to concern flickered across his face. Then it faded. "Okay, we can go later," he said. "I need to talk to you first." Evelyn looked at him, really looked at him. There was no urgency in his voice, no awareness, just inconvenience. "I'm not waiting," she said. Daniel frowned slightly. "Evelyn, this is important." "So is this," she replied. He exhaled sharply, already losing patience. "Fine," he said. "Then I'll call someone to take you." "Not I'll take you. Not I'm coming. Just someone." Evelyn nodded once. "That's fine." She turned toward the door. Behind her, another voice spoke. "Natalie." "You're going into labor?" she asked, stepping forward slightly. Evelyn didn't answer her. She opened the door. Cool air hit her face. For a second, she stood there, letting it ground her. Then she stepped outside. A car pulled up less than a minute later. Black, clean, professional. Not an ambulance. Not something Daniel had arranged. The driver stepped out immediately, moving toward her with quiet urgency. "Miss Harper?" he asked. Evelyn nodded. He opened the door for her without another word. Inside the house, Daniel stepped closer to the doorway, watching. "What is this?" he asked. Evelyn didn't turn back. "Someone who shows up," she said. And then she got into the car. The door closed. The world outside the house moved differently, quieter, more focused. As the car pulled away, Evelyn leaned her head back against the seat, her eyes closing for a second, as another contraction rolled through her. Her phone buzzed. "Claire, hospital is ready. Private admission. Don't worry about anything else." Evelyn exhaled slowly. Not relief. Something steadier. Control. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Staff were already waiting. A nurse approached her immediately, guiding her through the entrance, her voice calm and efficient. "We've been expecting you," she said. Evelyn didn't ask how. She didn't need to. Everything was handled, quietly, efficiently, respectfully. So different from the way she had been treated at home. Within minutes, she was in a room, monitors attached, doctors moving in and out. The contractions were closer now, stronger, real. Evelyn gripped the side of the bed, her breath uneven, her body working through something she couldn't slow down anymore. "You're doing well," a nurse said gently. Evelyn nodded faintly. Her phone rested on the table beside her. It buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. She let it ring. Another call. She didn't answer. A message came through. "Where are you?" Evelyn stared at the screen for a second, then turned it face down. Time passed. She didn't know how much. The pain blurred it. Minutes? Hours? Then suddenly, a quieter moment. A pause between contractions. The door opened. Evelyn looked up. For a split second, something inside her expected Daniel. But it wasn't him. It was a doctor. And behind him, another figure. A woman in a tailored suit. Calm. Composed. "Claire." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "You made it," Claire said, stepping closer. "I said I would." Evelyn replied. Claire glanced at the monitors, then back at Evelyn. "Everything's in motion," she said quietly. "The deal is finalized. Legal confirmations are already being processed." Evelyn closed her eyes for a second. Not from pain this time, from something else. completion. Outside that room, her life had just changed. Inside it, another one was about to begin. Another contraction hit, stronger than all the others. Evelyn gripped the bed, her breath breaking as her body pushed forward. "This is it," the doctor said. Evelyn nodded, her eyes locking onto nothing, focusing only on the moment in front of her. No Daniel, no Linda, no Natalie. Just her, and what she was bringing into the world. Hours later, when it was over, the room was quiet again. 2 small cries filled the air. Alive. Real. Hers. Evelyn lay back against the pillow, exhausted, her body heavy, her eyes barely open. A nurse placed one of the babies gently beside her, then the other. For a moment, everything else disappeared. No betrayal, no anger, just this. Then the door opened again. Evelyn's eyes shifted. Footsteps. Familiar. Daniel. He walked in slowly, his expression unreadable. And behind him, Natalie. Evelyn didn't move, didn't speak, didn't react. She just watched. Because whatever came next, she already knew he had no idea who he was walking away from. Daniel didn't look at the babies first. He looked at Evelyn. Not with concern, not with relief, with something closer to calculation. "You didn't answer your phone," he said, stepping further into the room. Evelyn didn't move. One of the twins lay against her chest, the other resting in the bassinet beside the bed. Their breathing was soft, fragile, real. "I was in labor," she said. Her voice was quiet, steady. Daniel exhaled like that was inconvenient. "Yeah, I can see that now," he replied, glancing briefly at the monitors, then back at her. "But we needed to talk." "We?" Evelyn's eyes shifted slightly. Natalie stood just behind him. Her posture composed, her expression carefully neutral. She didn't step closer, but she didn't stay back either. She belonged exactly where she had placed herself. In between. "I don't think this is the right time," Evelyn said. Daniel shook his head. "Actually, it is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Thick, formal. He placed it on the tray table beside her bed. The sound of it landing was soft, but final. Evelyn didn't look at it right away. She already knew. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I just had your children." "That doesn't change anything," he replied. There was no hesitation, no pause. Natalie shifted slightly behind him, her arms crossing, watching. Evelyn turned her head slowly and looked at the folder. Divorce papers, prepared, organized, signed on his side, waiting. For her. "You brought her here." Evelyn said, her voice still calm. Daniel followed her gaze briefly, then shrugged. "She's part of this," he said. "It's better if everything is clear from the start. Clear." Evelyn let that word settle. Behind her, one of the babies stirred softly. A small sound. Fragile. No one else reacted. "I'm not signing anything," Evelyn said. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "You don't really have a choice," he replied. "Let's not drag this out." Evelyn looked at him again. Really looked at him. "You think I don't have a choice?" she asked. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't have income, you don't have assets. Everything we built is under my name. The house, the accounts, everything. This just makes it easier for both of us. Easier." Evelyn felt something inside her go still. Not breaking. Just still. Natalie finally spoke, her tone soft, but edged with something sharper underneath. "It's not personal," she said. "It's just how things work at this level." At this level. Evelyn's gaze shifted to her. There it was. The assumption. The quiet belief that Evelyn didn't belong in that world. That she had never been part of it. Evelyn didn't respond. She reached for the baby resting against her chest, adjusting the blanket gently, her movements slow and careful. The room felt too quiet, too controlled. Like everything important had already been decided, just not by her. "You can review it later," Daniel said, tapping the folder lightly. "But I'd prefer if we handled this now." Evelyn let out a slow breath. Her body still ached, her muscles weak, her head heavy, but her mind was clear, clearer than it had been in a long time. "No," she said. Daniel's expression hardened. "No," he repeated. "I'm not signing anything today," Evelyn said. Natalie let out a small breath, almost amused. "You're going to make this harder than it needs to be," she said. Evelyn looked at her again, this time longer. "You're already making it harder than it needs to be," she replied. Natalie's smile faded just slightly. Daniel stepped forward again, his patience thinning. "Evelyn, this isn't about emotions," he said. "This is about reality. You can't support yourself. You can't support them." He gestured towards the twins. Evelyn's hand tightened just slightly on the blanket. "You're not in a position to negotiate," he continued. "The sooner you accept that, the better." For a moment, no one spoke. The machines hummed softly. The babies breathed. Evelyn looked down at them, then back at him. "You're wrong," she said. Daniel shook his head immediately. "I'm not, you are," she repeated. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. There was something in it now. Something different. Something he didn't recognize. Natalie noticed it first. A slight shift in her posture. A flicker of uncertainty. Daniel didn't. He was already turning away slightly, like the conversation was over. "Just think about it," he said. "I'll have my lawyer follow up." "Your lawyer?" Evelyn almost smiled, but she didn't. "Daniel," she said. He paused. What he asked. Evelyn met his eyes. Steady, unshaken. "I already have one." The room went quiet. Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly. Daniel frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She just reached for her phone, unlocked it, set it on the table beside the folder. A message sat at the top of the screen. Claire. Simple, direct. "Everything is ready when you are." Evelyn looked back at him, and for the first time since he walked into that room, Daniel hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. Because somewhere beneath his certainty, something didn't feel as solid as it had before. Daniel didn't like that pause. He covered it quickly, stepping forward again, his voice sharpening just slightly. "A lawyer," he repeated. For what, Evelyn didn't rush to answer. She adjusted the blanket around one of the twins, her movements slow, deliberate, as if nothing in that room could force her to move faster than she chose to. "For this," she said quietly. Daniel let out a short breath, almost a laugh. "Evelyn, you don't need a lawyer for this. It's straightforward, straightforward." The word hung in the air, heavy with everything he believed about her. Everything he assumed she didn't have. Natalie stepped a little closer, now her tone measured, almost careful. "If you're worried about terms, Daniel's already being generous," she said. "This is better than most people get in your position." Your position. Evelyn finally looked at her again. There was no anger in her expression, no visible reaction, just a quiet stillness that made Natalie hesitate just for a fraction of a second. "I'm not negotiating today," Evelyn said. Daniel's patience snapped a little more visibly this time. "You don't get to delay this," he said. "The sooner this is signed, the sooner we can move forward. We? Always we." Evelyn let that settle. "You already have," she said. Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "What does—" "It means you've already moved forward," she replied, her voice still calm. "You brought her here. You brought papers. You made your decision." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That doesn't change the reality," he said. "You're still dependent on me. You still need support." Dependent. Evelyn almost smiled again, almost. Behind Daniel, Natalie crossed her arms slightly, watching more closely now. Something in the room had shifted. Subtle, but undeniable. "You think I can't support myself?" Evelyn asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. I know you can't. The certainty in his voice was absolute, confident, final, and completely wrong. Evelyn looked at him for a long second. Then she reached for her phone again. This time she didn't just set it on the table. She turned it toward him. Unlocked. A document open on the screen. Clean, formal, legal. Daniel's eyes dropped to it automatically. For a second he didn't react. Then his brows pulled together. "What is this?" he asked. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She let him read. Let him see the structure. The formatting. The names. Then she spoke. "My agreement," she said. Daniel's expression shifted again. Not confusion this time. Something closer to irritation. "This doesn't make any sense," he said. "Agreement for what Evelyn's gaze didn't move. For my work." Natalie leaned slightly to the side, trying to see the screen more clearly. Daniel let out another short breath. "What work, Evelyn?" There it was. The question he had never asked. The one he had never needed to, because he had already decided the answer. Evelyn held his gaze. "The kind you thought didn't matter," she said. Daniel shook his head immediately. "You're not making sense." Evelyn didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just reached out and tapped the screen once, scrolling down slightly. Numbers appeared. Clauses, signatures. Not fully processed yet, but enough. Enough to be real. Daniel's eyes moved over them quickly, then slowed, then stopped. For a second he didn't speak. Natalie stepped closer, now her posture tightening, her eyes scanning the screen. "What is this?" she asked again, this time sharper. Evelyn didn't look at her. "A licensing agreement," she said. Daniel let out a quiet laugh, but it didn't land the same way this time. For what, he asked again. Evelyn's hand rested lightly on the baby beside her. Steady, grounded. "For something you tried to present this week," she said. Silence. Daniel's head lifted slowly. What, he asked. Natalie's expression changed. Not fully, but enough. A flicker. Evelyn saw it. "You didn't recognize it?" Evelyn continued. "But you used it anyway." Daniel's voice hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Evelyn nodded slightly. "I know," she said. That was the point. That was always the point. Daniel took a step back, running a hand through his hair, his thoughts catching up to something he didn't want to understand. "This doesn't change anything," he said faster now. "Even if you did some consulting or whatever this is, it's not enough. It doesn't affect." "It does," Evelyn said. "Not louder, just clearer." Daniel stopped. Natalie didn't move. Evelyn's phone buzzed softly in her hand. Another message. Claire. Evelyn didn't look at it. She didn't need to. She already knew what it would say. "Everything is in place." Daniel looked at her again, searching, now trying to find something familiar, something predictable, something he could still control. But it wasn't there anymore. "What are you trying to do?" he asked. Evelyn met his eyes. For the first time since he walked into that room, there was no hesitation. "I'm not trying to do anything," she said. A pause. Then quietly, "I already did." The room went still. The machines hummed softly. The twins breathed. Natalie took a slow step back. Daniel didn't move at all, because for the first time he wasn't sure what he was standing on anymore. And somewhere beneath that uncertainty, something much bigger was about to surface. The courtroom was quieter than Evelyn expected. Not tense, not dramatic, just final. Daniel sat across from her, shoulders tighter than before, his confidence worn down into something smaller. He didn't look at her much anymore. When he did, it wasn't with certainty. It was with realization. Too late. The judge's voice was steady as she read through the ruling, clear, structured. Every word backed by documents, evidence, timelines that couldn't be argued away. the licensing agreement, the intellectual property, the financial records, the transfers Daniel thought no one would trace, and the prenup he had signed without reading closely. Evelyn sat still, her hands folded in her lap, her expression calm. She wasn't watching Daniel. She wasn't watching Natalie either, who sat further back, her composure gone, her legal counsel whispering urgently beside her. Evelyn just listened. The court recognizes Miss Harper as the sole owner of the intellectual property and its resulting agreements, the judge continued. Any attempt to replicate, distribute, or profit from said work without authorization constitutes a violation subject to further action. A pause. Then Mr. Harper is ordered to reimburse legal fees and return any diverted funds tied to these actions. Daniel's head dropped slightly. Not in shock, in acceptance, because there was nothing left to argue. Primary custody is granted to Miss Harper with structured visitation rights as outlined. Evelyn closed her eyes for a brief second. Not from relief, from something quieter. Completion. When the hearing ended, people moved quickly. Papers were gathered. Lawyers exchanged final words. Natalie left first, her face tight. Her name already tied to an investigation that was growing beyond anything she could control. Daniel stayed behind. He stood there for a moment, like he wasn't sure where to go. Then he walked toward Evelyn. She didn't stand, didn't move. She just waited. "I didn't know," he said. The words came out low, stripped of everything he used to carry. Evelyn looked at him. "I know," she said. That was the truth. That had always been the truth. Daniel swallowed his eyes, searching her face, trying to find something familiar. I would if he started, then stopped. Because even he knew there was nothing he could finish that sentence with. Evelyn didn't help him. She didn't soften it. "You made your decisions based on what you thought I was worth," she said quietly. "Not who I was." Daniel's shoulders dropped slightly. There was no defense left. Just silence. Evelyn stood then, slow, steady. "I don't need anything from you anymore," she added. And she meant it. Not money, not apologies, not explanations. Daniel nodded once. It was the only thing he could do, because for the first time he understood the full weight of what he had lost. Not just the deal, not just the case, but the person who had stood beside him when he didn't see her at all. And now, he finally did. But she was already gone. Weeks later, the noise faded. The headlines moved on. The company distanced itself. Investigations continued without her involvement. Evelyn didn't follow any of it closely. She didn't need to. Her life had shifted into something quieter, more real. The apartment was smaller than the house she had left behind, but it felt different. Lighter. Like every space inside it belonged to her. 2 cribs stood near the window, soft light falling over them in the early morning. Evelyn stood nearby, one hand resting gently on the edge, watching the twins sleep, peacefully, unaware of everything that had come before them. Her phone buzzed once on the table behind her. A message, another update, another confirmation, another number that proved everything she had built. She didn't reach for it right away, because for the first time in a long time she didn't need proof. She had already taken back what mattered. Her name, her voice, her life. Evelyn leaned down slightly, adjusting the blanket around one of the babies, her movements soft, careful. Outside, the city moved on like it always did. Inside, something new had begun. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady, real, and hers. If this story stayed with you, maybe it's because we all know someone who was underestimated, or maybe we've been that person ourselves.